Well, hey there, friend, and welcome back for another episode of the Your Hair Mentor podcast, where I'm your host and your hair mentor, Crystal Green. And I invite you to come take a listen to the top leaders and thinkers and experts and innovators in the beauty industry as they share their stories of triumph and struggles and success in creating their businesses behind the chair. I hope you enjoy these episodes just as much as I did recording them. See you on the inside, friend. Well, I am so excited that you're here today to share a story with me on the podcast. And I am curious to hear a little bit more about you as a stylist behind the chair and then what you're doing in your digital space. But first and foremost, can you give me a proper introduction? Because honestly, I don't know if I pronounce your name Anna or Anna.
I get that all the time. And it's so funny. It's Anna. I would say, yeah, I say Anna. In Sweden, where I'm from, we obviously say Anna, but I wouldn't expect anyone to say that. That feels weird to me. Then it feels like I'm in Elsa in Frozen. But I got that so much. I got that from everyone in the States when I was there. It's like, we don't want to offend you. Is it Anna? I'm like, no, please don't. That's weird. So no, it's Anna.
Okay. Welcome, Anna. I'm so excited to have you on the
Thank you.
podcast today. And although I'm
Yes.
really curious to hear about this crazy story that you had getting yourself to the BTC show, right? I
Yeah.
want to hear a little bit about you first as a stylist and as a person. And then I guess I'm curious at this point, like, how did you end up in Australia?
Oh gosh. Yeah. So that's also a story on its own. So my name's Anna Haldane, and I have been doing hair for 20 plus years. I started real early, obviously, when I was just 6 years old.
Me too.
Like, let's
Me too.
not do any math, please. Yeah. Um, so I came to Australia in 2007 for basically a bit of a holiday and met the man of my dreams. I was just going to be here for a short period of time, like just a year, and met my now husband. And yeah, and it was a no-brainer when we sort of met each other that where are we going to live together? He's like, oh, we can move to Sweden. I'm like, no, there are palm trees here, there are beaches, it's snow in Sweden. We cannot live there. So yeah, and so I did the journey over to Australia, and now we have two boys, 9 and 6 years old. We have a business, and I work for myself. I ran a salon for 8 years over here, but I closed it when COVID hit. It was just simply too hard over here with restrictions and so on. So I'm renting a chair at a beautiful space and got some exciting plans coming up ahead. But yeah, that's very, very shortly, but that's pretty much it.
So you were from Sweden and you were
Yeah,
vacationing in Australia.
yeah,
How did you
pretty
meet your
much.
husband?
So I met him through friends here at one of the sleaziest bars, one of those university bars. Literally at there's a big university here called ECU, and anyone who's in Australia who's listening to this, if you are, you know what I mean, because these bars are like the tackiest of the tackiest. But it was just one of those moments, and I always tell this story to my clients when they ask me. It was literally love at first sight. I have never experienced anything like that ever. It was so meant to be.
Oh,
It was a moment of yeah, it was insane. It was a moment of just looking at each other and like, oh hi, who are you?
I
And
love
my
that.
family later on just said to me like, Anna, what are you doing with this man? He looks like a serial killer. And I'm like, thanks. That's great. He's gonna hate me for saying that. But my husband looks like a bikie. He's nothing like I've ever fallen for before. So yeah, but he's the love of my life.
Oh my
So
God, that's
here
so
we are today.
awesome. So
Yeah.
when you came to Australia, you were obviously doing hair ahead of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so you decided to stay. And then what is the reciprocity or like licensing like moving to Australia then?
So that was different back when I came. They made it an absolute nightmare. Today there are basically, as far as I'm aware, no restrictions. So it's gone from the extreme to the extreme. So when I first came, they recognized none of my like education, none of my paperwork, nothing. I had a salon in Sweden together with my sister, and had been working for many years already, and they didn't have any of it. So I had to go through basically all the education again, not all of it, but I had to prove to them that I could do a basic haircut. I had to roll a little lady's perm. I had to do a tint. I had to do some basic highlight. I think I did highlights in a cap.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it was like at one of these beauty centers where there were a couple of ladies who were standing over me and just judged my work. And then I had to sit and do a test in writing. Can't remember properly, but it's such a long time ago. But the main thing was that it cost a lot of money. That's what they were after. So I think it cost me $6,500
Oh my
altogether, something like that.
gosh. So you
It
were
was
committed.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very committed because I'm like, this is all I know how to do. I don't want to do anything else. Like and my husband is obviously, he was very supportive, so he helped me through the whole thing. And then in 2014, they scrapped this entire thing for people coming in. And nowadays, you don't even have to have a license to operate as a hairdresser. So there is huge issues in our industry here.
Oh.
Obviously, you need to be able to prove somehow that you have previously been licensed or something to be able to go to the trade wholesalers and to have an account and so on. But there's so many ways around that too. There's people getting around that all the time. So there's a million little home salons. Yeah, no, it's an issue over here. That's for sure.
Well, that's really interesting because I know the topic of deregulation has been quite
Mm.
popular here in the US lately. And so is that more or
Really?
less what happened in Australia was like deregulation
Yeah,
of, yeah, okay.
yeah. And it's
Gosh.
shocking. It's so dangerous for the industry. Like the amount of botched jobs that I see all the time, and people charge through the roof for these jobs too, and then they just simply don't care if the clients come back. It's just this in, out, and with no proper education whatsoever. So it's bad. It's almost
Wow.
like I want the regulation board to come back, but that didn't work really well either. So yeah, no, it's a flaw in the system. So I
Absolutely.
hope you guys don't get that there. It's
Yeah,
dangerous.
I guess I'm kind of confused on the whole topic. Like I see a little bit from both sides and I've had conversations kind of off the record with people that are very strong minded on both sides. And I'm like, I guess I could see both, but at the same time, like it does
Mm,
seem kind of dangerous for the end user and the consumer with chemicals on
mm.
people's heads and
Well,
no regulations on anything, you know?
mm.
Yeah.
I know it's really dangerous.
Okay, so you went through the ringer to get
Yeah.
licensed there, and do you feel like now there's like hairstylists that are like, I was licensed before it was taken away? Like, is there a little bit of a badge of honor with that kind of stuff in Australia?
Oh, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
can't help but have that myself too. It's almost like I have this old little certificate in paper that is like frailed on the sides and a little bit broken, and I still have that somewhere and just take it out now and then. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I was
I
there.
did that. Yeah, you guys don't do that anymore. I have this. But yeah, no, it's definitely that. And I can which is sad too, because there are a lot of upcoming young stylists here who are super dedicated, and obviously they don't want to, they almost have to prove themselves more,
Mm,
which perhaps is a good thing of its own, and maybe it will create better stylists out of it. I don't know, but yeah, no, it's definitely, yeah, I think so. There's a stigma
yeah.
these days in the industry over here that didn't used to exist.
Fascinating. Okay, so you
Mm.
got licensed, you met your husband, you were starting a new dream life there. Did you start out working in a salon, like renting a chair or as a commission stylist? Tell me about that journey for you.
No, so we don't actually have commission stylists here. That was something that I was confused about how it actually worked when I first heard it. So we don't do that here. We actually only started, I think WA, so Western Australia where I'm at, it's very different. We have like on the other side of Australia, they have different rules and different laws, kind of like you have with all of your different states. So over on the opposite side, they did booth renting and chair renting much earlier than what we had here. I don't think that it was legal in Western Australia until 2014.
Whoa.
So that's when I started my first salon here, and I did it as a rent-a-chair salon for stylists to come and rent from me. Before that, I worked at two different salons. I was managing a big salon before I opened mine. So it was just a basic employee. The first one that I was at was an Aveda. No, the second one was Aveda.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I came from. Aveda and O&M, which is an Australian brand,
I
which is
love
brilliant.
O&M. Yes, I
Oh,
love their
O&M is
color.
so good.
Do you
Yeah, I
use their
love them.
color
They're
still?
so good. I don't anymore. I work with, because I work, when I opened my salon, I worked with them for a bit, but then I started working with Redken. And then after a few years, I actually moved over to Davines. So Davines is the ones that I work with now, which I love,
One
love,
of
love,
my
love. But if,
favorite lighteners is from Davines.
oh, the Progress Lightener
Mm.
is
Chef's kiss.
yes, absolutely. It can do no wrong. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's so beautiful to work with. I'm trying to push that on to everyone. I'm like, please, you guys, hear me out.
It's
You
so
can
true.
lift from a 1 to a 10 safely. I swear to you, I do it daily.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, it's beautiful. I love them.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. Okay. Well, wonderful. I love to know that you love some of the same products I do. Okay.
Yes.
So where are you these days? Are you salon owner these days now or
No,
at
so I
all?
closed the doors to my salon.
Oh, that's right.
Was
You
it? I
said in the
think it was,
pandemic.
yeah. Yeah, so 2021, November 2021, at the end of my lease term, I just decided to not renew. It was simply too hard. We had had too many lockdowns, too many. I mean, you guys went through, we all went through the same. And I just
Yeah.
was at a moment when I'm like, I can keep on fighting and keep on going. But I was just done. I felt beat. So I went out and rented a chair.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I am. I'm at a beautiful salon, very local, very central in the city. Like just in the little bit of the outskirts. It's beautiful. So I'm very happy doing that for now, and but we'll see what the future holds. I think some other stuff coming up, so we'll see.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes. There's something fun about going from like an ownership role to then stepping back into like the simplicity of just showing up to work
Oh,
and paying your booth rent, right?
honestly, it's the best ever. Just little things for me. It was just not have to worry about washing towels, not worry about when is the basin gonna break again? You know, just getting the phone calls from the salon like the stereo isn't turning on. We have one of the basins is plugged again, or uh, all of those the tiny things that just cost so much money in the long run. Someone leaving the aircon on all weekend at the salon, and it's like, yeah, someone else's problem these days. Now I'm the one who can tell people like, I'm sorry, but the basin isn't working, you
Yeah.
know? And yeah, not worry about electricity and overheads, and it's so easy. Just come and go.
Mm,
I do miss it though. There is I think that there is I do have a love of having my own space and having like the pride and having your own space and all of that. But as for now, it's been bliss for the past couple of years to not have to worry.
right. Well, and it's obviously afforded you time to think about other things like working
Yeah.
for another team online and
Yeah.
entering in the BTC awards and all of that fun stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah, because that takes up a lot of time. When people ask me like, how much time do you actually put into your social media? I'm like, man, it's a full-time job. It's a freaking full-time job. It's just creating the content and uploading and engaging and watching it grow. And it's just, yeah, it's a full-time job.
I
So that
agree.
gave me a lot of time to focus on that too.
Yeah. Okay, so we chatted a little bit before this recording, but you are currently, what's your title with Masters of Balayage? Are you like an ambassador or what's the label that you have with
No,
them?
so I'm an educator for
Okay.
Masters of Balayage. I was contracted 2 years ago in October, I think. Gosh, that went quick. That's scary.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago in October. And the funny thing was that I actually applied. to be an ambassador with them. That was all that I thought that I could be, because I'm like, no one knows who I am over here in Australia, and I'd been following them, and I was absolutely in awe of what they did, and I'm like, oh, just to be an ambassador would be such a dream. And then that application came back, and they said, we would like for you to take the next step and go and into the auditions to be an educator. And I didn't even know that they did international. And at that point, they didn't. So it was the first year that they spread their wings to spread across the globe. So I got to do a video of me showcasing how I educate and the style that I have and so on. And they welcomed me into their family. And it was one of the most incredible moments of my career. So it was me and I think, was it 3 more international educators at that point that were chosen. So the idea is to bring mob into Australia, but it is a little bit tricky with Australian regulations and the fact that we are literally on the other side of the world.
Yes.
Like we are so far away from everything and I realized that when I now went to the States. I'm like, yeah, I knew that I was far away, but this far away, I didn't realize when you watch that little aeroplane on the map on the flight, and it's like, yeah, I flew from there to there.
Yes.
So so that's still in the process. But yeah.
Okay, so Masters of Balayage, doing great, loving it. Do you do color education for them, haircut education, all of the above? Okay. So then
no cutting.
No cutting. Okay, so just coloring.
I'm like, we all cutting for me.
Yeah, we all have our strengths. It's okay. I'm not judging.
Yes. No, that's good. I'm like, yeah, it was funny because this year for BTC, the top 25 that I received, I joked with the girls when I was there, was for long cut this year. And I joked and I'm like, yeah, that's funny because I barely cut her hair. It was literally a trim. I'm like, I took that much off, but it looks nice in the picture. I'm like, I don't want to win this. I can't accept this if I win this.
Right. Oh my God, that's so
I'm
funny.
like, oh, this is such a cheat. But yeah, no, but yeah, I was very happy when I received that. But I'm like, gosh, the other girls and the other boys actually made an effort into their haircuts.
You know what though? I mean, doesn't that says so much about each individual and like our own imposter syndrome that we have, right? Like,
oh yeah,
I'm sure you have some skill set that has elevated you to some degree and able to cut hair, right? Like maybe that's
absolutely
not your strongest suit, but you're obviously good enough to be in the BTC awards. And so it's so easy to like say, oh, I'm not that good at that. But clearly, girlfriend,
I think
right?
we all do that. I mean, we all do. And of course, I know how to cut hair, but it's just not. I look at all of the amazing artists out there now with the shags and all of the fancy new words for all the haircuts, and I'm like, yeah, that's fantastic. Good for you guys. I'm like, it's long layers for me and the trim. That's what you get. So, but yeah, no, imposter syndrome is real in this industry for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, any artist, right? We're always like, bagging on ourselves. But I'm really curious to hear your thoughts now that we're talking about this, about the names of the hair trends that come through, like the, iced mocha latte blonde, and now it's the cowboy copper and the butterfly haircut. I personally enjoy them because I feel like it just brings a sense of like excitement for the clients, and then they come in asking for these things, and then I have to do some detective work to figure out what that is, right?
Yeah, that too.
Okay.
It's that too.
But I know there's like a huge pushback in our industry for stylists that are like, can we just stop with the cutesy names? I personally like them. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it.
I personally like them too, but it's such a controversial thing. So it's like, I actually
I know.
Because it's almost scary when you go online certain days and it's almost like aggression from people, and then you don't want to take a side. I don't mind them at all. I think that, just like you said, I think it brings excitement and something fresh, and like, yeah, of course, it might have been around for donkey's years. Like, who cares? Do we really want to have the same old, like, stale terminology. No, it makes something, it brings fresh air. I think so. And for clients too, instead of why should we just say like, oh, we're just going to do long layers today. No, let's do a butterfly cut. And then the client is going to be like, oh, yes, let's do that. You know,
Exactly.
because cowboy copper, I'm sorry, I love that. I absolutely love that. And especially when I looked into where, well, I think that's where it comes from. At least there was someone who made the point of, just with the cowboy look, with the different shades of leather brown and leather copper and all of that. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me. That's
Totally.
fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind that. I think that's absolutely amazing. Now, I haven't done a cowboy copper on my own Instagram yet, just because it's been so controversial. And I'm like, oh man, should I not? But I think I might. I
Mm-hmm.
think I will.
I think you
I
should.
think we have to.
I'm here for it. I'm
I
just
think so.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Good. It's done. I'm gonna have to, someone
Right.
out there come into my chair and we'll do a cowboy copper.
Perfect.
And the haters
Right.
can hate.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Let them feel their feelings, and I have mine, and that's fine.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. We're all different and it's fine.
Exactly.
It's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
We
Awesome.
can't stop
Okay.
the trends.
So I want to get to this juicy story that brought me to you, right? But I first
Mm.
want to ask you, like, how did you get involved in BTC? Was this like the first year that you were submitting photos and you got in the, top ranks, or was it kind of a long process for you? Can you walk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, so this was my third year entering. And the first year I got a top 100 in balayage. And last year, I can't remember how, I think I got two or three, not two, three top 100s. I can't remember, but I got two finalist nominations last year. So I got one brunette and one bob lob last year. And then this year I got five top 100s and I got the one top 25. And so it's been a dream of mine to go to the show, but it's just been, you know, I'm at the end of the world. So, but
Well,
that's been my journey.
and you have kids.
I have kids. I
Mm-hmm.
got two kids who need me full time and whom I've never left before. So it was, yeah. So that too, and a business. And, it cost a lot of money to fly to the States.
Mm-hmm.
I recently discovered. So yeah, no, so that's been my journey with them. And then just with Mary from behind the chair, I also had the privilege of speaking to her 2 years ago on Clubhouse, because she had discovered my page and started following me. And she invited me to speak to her on Clubhouse to give me some tips and ideas about how to improve my page and so on. So that really took it to the next level. And so yeah, no, it's been 3 years in the making to get to
Okay.
this show.
Yeah. So then you're like, okay, I finally made it in like top 25. So I'm going to make the trek and I'm going to go to the BTC show. And tell me, like, I know some details about what happened, but walk us through the
Mm.
story of what happened with you, because if someone's listening and they don't know, they're going to want to know the whole story here.
Yeah, it was a ride, a wild, wild ride. So it started with Mary giving me two VIP tickets to come to the show, because I won a competition that she had on her Threads page when Threads was brand new. Now I feel like everyone's forgotten about it again, but it's just
Totally.
disappeared. Um, so she gave me two VIP tickets. And at that point, I was like, oh my God, that's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. But I was still at the point where I'm like, but I'm not going to be able to go. It's such short notice. It's just a month away.
Mm.
I looked at the ticket prices and I'm like, man, it's completely no, it's a no. And I said to my husband, I'm like, oh, well, yeah, that was lovely. I'm just going to email them and tell them that, thank you so much, but you're going to have to take these tickets back. And 24 hours later, he pulled me aside and he's like, no, I think you should go. And I'm just like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Go where? He's like, to the BTC show. And I'm like, I can't go to the freaking BTC show. It's in 4 weeks. What are you talking about? I have clients. Edwin has got sports. You know, I'm like, oh, come on. Who's going to take Edwin to sports? And he's like, I am. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
okay. Yeah, sure. We are two parents, aren't we?
right.
So I was just all over the place. And he was the one, he booked me the tickets. He booked my accommodation. He paid for all of it. And I was the entire time through, I was constantly saying to everyone, I'm like, this is going too smoothly. Everything is going way too smooth. And something always goes wrong. I don't know if
Mm.
you feel the same, but there is always something that happens,
Did you forget to knock on
right?
wood? You have to knock on wood when you
Yeah,
say stuff like that.
I know. And I was constantly like, with every new thing that happened, I was just like, no, but you know, this is not. And he's like, oh, I think you should buy yourself a new wardrobe. I'm like, who are you? Where, like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, but this will be the trip of a lifetime. I'm like, yeah, okay, well. And then I started getting, like, for the people who follow me, they realized how nervous I was about this trip just to begin with, because I had never left the boys before.
And how old are
And
your
we
boys at
booked
this point?
So they are 6 and almost 9.
Right. So like little
And
little kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, little kids who are used to me being there all the time.
Right.
And I mean, I'm the one who does the most, school drop off and sports, because my husband works a lot of shift work. So I'm the one who's like in control. And it was funny because when we were planning for this, I actually got my husband a bit upset at one point, because I had messaged him for like 4 nights in a row to his work. And I'm like, are you sure that you can do this? Are you sure? 100% sure? And he eventually called me and he's like, Anna, sakes, I'm
Yeah.
actually getting a bit offended. Like, you don't think that I can look after our kids? I'm like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And I just didn't realize that that I was pushing it so hard. But so I was saying the whole time, I'm like, something always goes wrong. And I was really anxious about leaving, but nothing went wrong. And then it comes to the night when I'm about to go, and I was leaving the house at 1 a.m. in the morning.
Oof.
And my husband was up with me, and I had some wine because, I haven't been flying for a while, and I haven't actually left the country since 2012. I'm not a good flyer as it is. And I normally have to take something, to sleep on the flight, but I'm like, I'm not going to do that this time because I'm all by myself. Who knows what's going to happen, right? I'm like, I'm not going to walk into border security all drugged up.
Right.
This is not the day when we're going to end up in a prison cell in the States. So, so I was really nervous to begin with. But I leave the house, say bye-bye to husband. He's like, all right, I'm going to get some sleep. I'm like, okay. He's like, call me before you board the flight. And I'm like, sure. And then I get to the airport and I sit there, and then it comes to check-in time at 3:30 in the morning. And I woke up and I'm the only one who goes to the international part, which was really lucky, because I I woke up to this lady and she scans my passport. And then she sort of frowns and she's like, do you have a second passport that you normally fly on? And I'm like, no, that's my brand new passport. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, I'm so nervous already at this point. And I'm just like, is everything okay? She's like, yes, everything's fine. Just don't worry. I'm just going to make a phone call. And I'm like, okay. And then I think to myself, because this passport is brand new.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, maybe, they haven't canceled the old one. Maybe, they haven't registered this one. I'm like, everything's fine. And I stand there and I'm just waiting for her to sort of whisper on the phone. And then she hangs up the phone and she's like, okay, so your permanent residency is going to expire today.
What?
And I just stand there and I'm like, no, no, it's not. I have permanent residency for life. Like, I live here. And she's like, your permanent residency will expire today. Just very calm and collected. And I'm just like, just sort of looking around a bit. I'm like, what do you mean? No. And she's like, okay, so there has been a change. to the type of visa and the type of permanent residency that you are on. That was apparently made in 2017. And I'm like, uh-huh, continue, please.
Yes.
And so she very calmly and really calmly informs me that Department of Immigration has changed the rules on this particular permanent residency that I'm on, so that I have to fill out a particular, like a specific form request to be able to leave and come back to the country. And if I don't, and if I leave without filling this form out and paying money, of course, they cancel my residency if I leave the country.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so she is on the phone to Department of Immigration because apparently they have a hotline at the airport. I was not allowed to talk to them. Yeah. Apparently there's a lot of stuff going down at the airport so that they need their own hotline.
Clearly.
But I was not allowed to talk to them. And I was just like, just hand me the phone. There's clearly some misunderstanding here. And she's like, no, you know, and she's like walking back and I'm like, give me the phone. And yeah, so I'm just like, okay, at this point, I'm obviously a bit upset. And I am a bit shaking and tears are starting to I'm just like, I need a moment. She's like, what would you like to do, ma'am? And I'm like, I don't know. What are you talking about? I don't know what I need to do. I need to call my husband. And so I walk off, and this is the part where it's lucky that I was the only one there because I was able to go back and forth to this desk. So I just left my bag there. She's like, would you like to check your bag in? I'm like, no, give me my bag back. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so at this point, I'm just like, well, that's it. That's the adventure over, and I'm just going to have to go home. But first, I need to call Gareth because I need to inform him that I'm going to grab an Uber and come home. So I call him, and he's at home sleeping, obviously, and I'm just blabbing on the phone, and I'm like, honey, listen, something has happened. Like shit has gone down over here, and apparently they're gonna cancel my visa. He's like, whoa, 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 whoa. He's like, what are you talking about? And I'm literally like this, just shaking like a leaf. And people are looking at me and like, oh my God, is she okay? I'm like, no, I'm not okay. I'm anything but okay. And I just talking 2,000 miles per hour on the phone to my husband, and he's just like, calm down, slow down. He's like, what are they telling you? And I'm like, yeah, so apparently I need to fill out this form and I need to pay this money and and he's like, okay, can I talk to them? And I'm like, no, because we're not allowed to talk to them. He's like, all right.
We don't have the hotline.
And yeah, we don't have that hotline. Because you know how long you have to sit and wait in line to talk to Department of Immigration? It's not that fast. She literally just like this, hi. That would be handy. So at this point, he's like, you need to go back and talk to her because obviously there's been some misunderstanding. And so we hang up the phone. I go back and I get confirmation again. Your visa will be expiring today if you leave the country. She's like, but you still have about, what was it at this point? Like 6 hours, 7 hours until you leave Sydney. So you can always fly there. I'm like, yeah, I suppose I could, but I'm not gonna. like, what am I gonna do? Like, just fly to Sydney and then come back? No. So I call my husband again, and I'm like, no, that's it. They've told me now that this is final. I mean, obviously, I can't apply from my phone, so there's nothing I can do. So I'm coming home, and he's like, fuck you are, and I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, you're getting on that fucking plane. You're going. And I'm like, Jesus, I can't go. What do you mean I can't go? Because at this point, I've been informed now that the reality of this was so severe that by canceling the permanent residency, I would have to stay out of the country for 3 months. I would have to reapply for my entire original big permanent residency, which at this point probably cost between $6,000 to $10,000.
Oh my God.
I would have to, and also the approval time period could take up to 24 months. During this time, I would have to be on a bridging visa, of which I would have to apply for work rights that would only grant me 20 hours per week. And I was just standing there, and I'm like, I live in Australia. I have a business. I have clients. What am I gonna do for 3 months? Am I gonna live in Texas for 3 months? Like, what am I gonna do in Texas for 3 months? I'm just like, am I not gonna see my kids? And Gareth was like, you are going to Texas. That's it. I'm like, he's like, you're checking in, you're sending your bag to Texas, and you're going. He's like, we'll sort it out. If shit like hits the fan, he's like, me and the boys will just have to come to Texas. I'm like, holy shit. And I'm just like, okay. So I'm doing this.
Oh my God.
Apparently I'm doing this. And I'm giving my passport to this lady. She scans it and she's like, you're sure? I'm like, no, not at all.
Yeah.
And then I see my bag disappear and I'm like, this is a huge mistake. And then from there on, I am now sitting in the Perth airport and I have the biggest panic attack I've had in my life. I can't even explain. I actually feel a little bit offended that no one said anything. I'm like, people must have noticed. I was shaking, I was sweating, I was crying. No one said a word. And I'm like, this is at an airport. That's the place where people dob on each other the most. Like, something is wrong with her,
Yeah.
you know?
Don't let her on the plane.
No one, yeah, don't let her on the plane. Like, security guards, for the love of God. I might have been a psycho. So at this point, I managed to buy myself a neck pillow. I can't remember buying this neck pillow, but I
blacked
knew
out.
I blacked out. But I knew that I had to buy myself a neck pillow because I hadn't brought one from home because the boys have ruined them. So for some reason, I managed to go to a little shop and buy myself a very comfortable neck pillow. And I realized this as I'm sitting at the in one of the chairs all of a sudden. I'm like, oh, I have a neck pillow. Where did that come from? And I realized that I'm holding the receipt. I'm like, yeah, okay, I bought it. Yeah, that's great. And at this point, my husband is at home trying to figure out this application. And it turned out that it wasn't just a matter of clicking a few boxes and filling in your information and paying $500. It wasn't just that. They needed a marriage certificate, change of name certificate. They needed my old passports. They needed my original my original visa grant from 2011. That's when my permanent residency was approved, 11 or 12. And my husband is messaging me and the Wi-Fi is shocking at this airport. Like, no reception. And he's like, you need to send me a copy of your ID. And I'm like, okay, trying to send that. And the images are not sending. And it was just absolute nightmarish. And then he realizes that all of these documents are most likely in our roof space, where we have stored them for a gazillion years. So he is now up in the roof space, which, I mean, it's not an attic, or not an attic. It's a crawl space.
Yes.
Where we store. Yeah, that is filthy. And it's coming up towards like 5:30 in the morning, and he is filthy and he is looking for documents and boxes in the roof space, and he's messaging me constantly. It's like, where's this? And my brain's not working. I'm like, I don't know. I had literally been holding my old passports before I left the house, and he's like, you had them, where are they? I'm like, I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to go. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. And then I need to board the flight, and the one document that he can't find at this point is the original visa grant. That was one of the most important ones. So he tells me that you have to call Department of Immigration as soon as you land in Sydney and ask them for this information. And knowing how long it takes to get a hold of Department of Immigration, I'm like, yeah, I have just over 2.5 hours in Sydney. And I'm like, okay, so that's the first thing I need to do. And just focus on that. And it's a 4.5 hour flight to Sydney. And on this flight, luckily I had Wi-Fi on the flight so that we could communicate this whole time, because he was constantly like, all right, I might have find a way around it. And they're like, no, sorry, no way around that. And so like it's up and down and up and down.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting next to this lovely lady who's just like, hi, how are you? And I'm literally, you know, when you're at a state where you're so emotional and so fragile that it's like, if anyone shows me any kind of like if anyone talks to me right now, I'm gonna break down so bad. And my husband is messaging me because I'm just like, honey, I'm gonna panic. I'm gonna panic. And he's like, the last thing you want to do, Anna Haldane, is panic on an airplane. He's like,
Truth.
you do not want to go viral. You don't want to be one of those videos. You know, you don't want to be the girl who's like, that MF that back there is not real. You know,
Yes.
one of them. So I'm sitting there just trying to be calm and collected and just hide from everyone that I'm literally crying my eyes out. And then by the time, so this is 4.5 hours of constant panic.
Oh my gosh.
And as I am literally landing in Sydney, he sends me a message. I hadn't heard from him for about half an hour, because during this time too, our boys had woken up. So they needed breakfast. They needed to go to school. So Gareth had to go and drop them off at school, filthy, because he'd been in the roof space. And he also he realized that when he had all the documents, that our scanner didn't work. So he had to download and purchase a new software for the scanner and a new Windows program. And it was just like everything that could possibly happen happened at that point in time.
Oh my God.
And but I hadn't heard from him in about half an hour. And by the time that I land in Sydney, he sends me a screenshot of like the computer and just like, granted. And I am literally sitting there with my phone and I'm like, oh, literally like that. And the girl next to me, she's like, oh, dear. And I'm like, hi. Oh my, how are you? What are you going to do in Sydney? And just start rambling to her. And like, I haven't spoken a word to her this entire flight. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what happened? And so I get out of the flight. I try to sort of squeeze my way through because I want to be able to get to be the first one out. I'm able to call my husband and he's like, yeah, I did it. I don't know how I did this, but I did. And I'm just like, oh my God, like how? And he's like, no, I don't want to talk about it. I just need to sleep. And I'm like, okay. And I'm having the biggest adrenaline rush ever. And then I find a bar, as you do. And first thing in the morning, because I mean, what time is it then? Because Sydney is 3 hours ahead of us too. So I think it was around maybe 11 o'clock. And I'm like, I don't care. It's one of my friends told me, she's like, at airports, there's no time zone. It doesn't
Amen.
matter if it's 6 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, you have a freaking drink. So I sit down at a bar and literally the guy at the bar looks at me. He's like, you look like you need a drink. I'm like, thanks. Okay, thanks. Yes, I do. I'm like, I need the biggest glass of wine that you have and the oakiest Chardonnay. I'm like, I don't care what it is. I just need it. He charged me $45 for it. I'm like, I didn't even care. I just gave him the card. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. Money
And
well
then
spent.
I decided, yeah, money very well spent. And, you know, I hadn't eaten, so I'm starting to get a little bit tipsy at this point. And I decided I'm like, I'm going to share this story with my followers. So I decided to do in my stories, a 10 slide story about what happened. And just go through it, and didn't even pay attention to how many people were watching or looking at it. And then I closed my phone. I boarded the plane to Dallas, didn't have any reception over that flight, and that was 14.5 hours.
Oof.
And then the panic and the adventure continued in Dallas, because at Perth Airport, they had told me that my bag would go straight to Austin. And I specifically asked her, I said, well, since my point of entry is in Dallas, will that just go through that on its own? And she's like, yes, not a problem, no worries. Australians. They're like, no worries, it'll go all the way. I'm like, sweet. And then they tell me on the flight that for anyone who has a domestic connection, you will need to collect your luggage and then drop it off at the drop-off point. And I'm like, excuse me. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I've never been to the States. I'm super scared. And I'm like, do I have to do that? She's like, yes, definitely. And I said, okay, how long does that normally take? And she's like, oh, I'm not really sure, but how much time do you have in Dallas? And I'm like, oh, an hour 20. And she's like, ooh, that's a bit tight. I'm like, this is great. That's exactly what you want to hear. So, so then I have another panic attack. And I don't know. I mean, yeah, you're obviously in the States, but have you been to Dallas Airport?
Yes, I have. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a city.
Yeah.
And I thought that I was like, I'm on the phone to my husband and I'm like, how big is this airport? And he just does a quick Google search. He's like, well, the area is actually bigger than Manhattan. I'm like, fantastic. So I go through border security and all of that, and I literally have 20 minutes until they're going to close the gates for my flight to Austin. And I'm standing there and just looking at the flickering boards and like, there's my flight, and then it's gone. And I'm like, what is this? And I'm just panicking and I have no idea where I am. And then two lovely pilots walking up and I'm like, excuse me, can you help me? And they find my flight and my gate and they're like, but sweetheart, you're at the international airport. You need to be at the domestic. You're on D. You need to be at A. So I suggest that you run up those stairs and grab the train and pray to God that you will be there on time. I'm like,
Wow.
so I arrive at that gate 5 minutes before it's meant to take off. And she's like, oh, there you are. I was just about to call your name on the speakerphone. I'm like, that's fantastic. But I make it to Austin and just a whirlwind. And then when I arrive at the hotel, when I finally can look at my phone, I realize that those stories that I had put up had taken off. And I had probably 150 messages on my phone from people like, holy Christ, what's going on? Are you here? Like, what is going on? What did you do? Are you insane? I'm like, well, yes, apparently so.
By now, yes.
Why now? Certified on paper. And yeah, so then that story took off at the show too, to the point that it was brought up on stage by Mary, and yeah, called me out like over to the stage, and I had to stand there like, hi everyone. Yeah, that's me.
Still in a panic.
Yes, still in panic mode, everyone. I do not know what I'm doing or who I am, but yeah, I am here. Very good. So yeah, that was my story, and it became the I risked it all for BTC story,
Right.
pretty much.
I don't know if anyone will ever triumph over that story for getting to BTC. I mean, that is insane. I can only imagine all the different steps along the way, like the mom guilt sets in, the wife guilt sets in,
Yeah.
the business owner guilt, the like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? Oh, girl.
Honestly, yeah, the mom guilt was I think, in all honesty, and I know that so many people are like, oh my gosh, we shouldn't talk about mom guilt here and there. It's so not fair. It's a real thing. And I had that mom guilt from just going from the very beginning. My youngest one apparently didn't care that I was going, which was lovely. You know, when we dropped the bomb on them that I was going, I think it was no more than a week before, because I wanted to leave it as close as possible. And it was over dinner, and Gareth was like, so boys, what would you think if mommy went to the States? Because it was going to be 9 days altogether. And my oldest one, who is, you know, very attached to me. I mean, they both are. He's like, oh, no, what do you mean? Mommy can't go. And the little one was like, so what? Who cares? I'm like, you could show a little bit of sadness, like just a smidge, you know? But no, he didn't care the whole time. But the feeling of leaving them and just this like what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Who do I think I am doing this? Like we're spending all of this money for me to go. And for what? Like, this money we could spend on the most lavish trip to Bali for the whole family. But my husband was, in all honesty, he also became a bit of a celebrity at BTC, which he hates because he's like the guy in the background. He's on no social media. He never shows his face. But in all honesty, if it hadn't been for him the entire time, he was the driving force in this. He was the one who said that you have to go. You have to finally be there and make the connections and show your face. And like, this is it. You have to take that first step and set that cornerstone for the next chapter of your life. And he was absolutely right in all of that. It was the best trip that I've ever had. And it was so important in so many ways. But yeah, that mom guilt. And at the airport, when I realized, I'm like, I just literally risked potentially not being able to see my boys for 3 months. Like, how is that going to go down with them later on in life? It's like, mom abandoned us for a hair show.
That's lots of therapy later. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be expensive therapy. But then I could also go back and like, your dad told me to go. It's dad's fault. Don't blame me.
That was your like ace in the hole in your back pocket.
Yeah, exactly. It was him all along. I had nothing to do with this.
Forced me to go.
He forced me to go. Absolutely. So that became the story.
Yeah. I was a little late to the game. I ended up catching up with your stories. I want to say like 12 hours later or something, and I was like, what the heck is going on? Whoa, and I could just see the distress in your eyes when you were like, I might not see my family. Like, what am I doing? I was like, oh yes, I feel that. Like that, just even if everything went smooth sailing, we would still have the same guilt leaving, thinking, should I be going? Should I be doing this?
Absolutely. 100%. And that was, the entire trip was such a whirlwind of emotions that it was such a roller coaster because in all honesty, it was almost like I got so emotionally distressed from that entire episode that it affected me on a deeper level, and on a deeper level that I actually didn't realize that it could happen, because I started getting like smaller panic attacks during the time that I was in the States too, because I was severely jet lagged, and honestly trying to keep up with everything that's going on. I mean, I'm 41. Like, I can't party like this anymore. Like, I just looked at these people. I'm like, how did you do that? I know that you stayed out until like 2 and then you're up at 7 o'clock in the morning, all refreshed. Like, what is this life? I can't do this anymore. So it was just such a whirlwind, and trying to keep up with talking to the boys and talking to my husband, and it's a 13-hour time difference, so they were ahead, they were 1 day ahead, and just trying to still, there were still things that I had to do as a mom, like I'm getting a phone call from my husband just before the top 25 party was going to happen, and he's like, so when is Edwin's soccer game? And I'm like, for the love of God. He's like, we're here, but there's no one here. And I'm like, yeah, because you're 1 hour early. I'm kind of busy, so good luck with that. And he's like, oh, I suppose we're just going to wait in the car then. I'm like, yeah, you do that. I'm going to try and go and be glamorous somewhere else. Like, I'm going to go and have some champagne.
Yeah.
So it was,
So here's a question. Here's a question for you. Would you do it again?
Oh, 100%.
Woo! I like that.
100%. And the reason for that was, I have been in a huge fan of these awards and BTC and for a long time. But when they talk about that these shows are life changing and that it's like you should not ever regret coming, or like you should never hesitate coming because it's life changing. I was always skeptical to that and sort of felt like, well, what can I actually gain? At the end of the day, I thought it's just a massive party weekend, with, the massive awards nights, which I'm not going to win anyway, and but I have to say that at the end of the day, I did walk into it, or I did go there with a specific plan and like a specific idea that I had, that I was going to connect with a specific type, like some specific people and so on, which didn't end up happening in the end because it was so busy. Like these people, they were just pulled left, right, and center, and I got to see them at certain points, but for me, what the main value and what really truly changed everything for me was that it made me find a part of myself that I had lost. And I mean, for the past 10 years, I have been a wife, a mom. I've been, I restarted my business pretty much twice, because working for myself, being pregnant, we didn't have family here at that point, so we've been doing everything by ourselves. So restarting the business after every pregnancy. And yeah, basically I lost the part of me that was this person. And this person I needed in order to be able to take the next step of my career. And I found her again at this show. I found that I belonged. Because it's really hard sometimes when you sit in Perth, Western Australia, which is literally the end of the world. Like, we are so far away from everything. Like, even like it's not even funny. We are here and everything else is there. And it's so expensive to go anywhere. Like Australia, I didn't realize when I first came here, Australia is a freaking continent. It takes like it's not just a tiny country where you're like, okay, I'm just gonna pop over to Sydney. No, it takes 4.5 hours to fly to Sydney.
Turns out.
So sometimes it actually feels like when you're sitting over here and, I'm just like, well, I have made lots of friends and connections on Instagram, but you can't help to, we're going back to imposter syndrome, to think that, am I just, is it just people just, they don't know who I am. They have no idea.
They don't
the
care.
Big scheme of things. They don't care.
Right.
They don't care. If I'm not here tomorrow, no one is gonna notice. And like, I'm just this mom of two. I'm 41 and just doing hair, and like, no one cares. And then arriving at this show and realizing that people do care, and that people actually you think that you belong and show you that you belong. And yeah, it was life-changing, completely life-changing. So I gained a specific confidence at this show and during this week that I didn't have before. And also I realized that apparently I'm a bit stronger than what I thought that I was, because apparently I have a husband who is basically Mission Impossible Tom Cruise. So with that in mind, like, I can pretty much do anything because he will fix it for me,
Right.
He will do it for me. So yeah, it was life-changing, absolutely life-changing.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's a really powerful story and really powerful insight. Not everyone has to jump on a plane, potentially abandon their family, and travel all the way across the world to have this feeling.
No.
But your story, it will resonate with so many of us, just taking the leap to do the scary things in our life and in our business. Absolutely. And kind of reinvent ourselves in a way that feels authentic and real and exciting, right?
Yeah. I said to my husband, I'm like, literally, it was the first time in my life that I'm like, all right, like YOLO. It was the first time that I'd ever said that, and I felt so silly, but I'm like, yeah, no, it's literally, you only live once. Like, that was the moment when I could say that and proper mean it, because I had to. Like at the end of the day, looking back at it, he was completely right. I had to do this. I had to go. But with everything said, that like I said from the beginning, that there's always something that goes wrong. There's always something that happens. Yeah, something did go wrong, but for a good reason, I think.
Yeah.
For a good reason, though, for a good cause. I think that I got to meet a few people that I probably wouldn't have been able to meet if it hadn't been for this story. I think that I got a certain amount of attention that I probably wouldn't have had if it wasn't for this story.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it was really painful, but yeah, it worked out in the end.
Yes, I think so. And I can't wait to see where you take this energy, that this newfound sense of like who you are and what you do with it. So thank you so much again for sharing that story with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on and allowing me to do so, because I hope that people realize that you can if you really want to. And sometimes it's worth taking the risk. Sometimes you just have to.
Yes.
Because it will pay you off. It will just pay itself off,
Yeah. I feel like when
it's
we
worthwhile.
find, yes, yeah, exactly. When we find what we think is our boundaries and we push past them is where we really find where we're strong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to push through that fear. Otherwise you can't grow. There's no growth in just taking 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. No, you have to walk straight through into that fire.
Straight through the airport terminal.
Yeah, straight through the airport terminal, straight into the unknown.
Yes.
And I'm going to be alone for months.
Oh my gosh. I just can't even imagine what was going through your mind in that moment, Mama. I just feel like I would be panicking as well. And so I'm so proud of you for doing it.
Yeah. No, and I was at a moment when I was sitting and like, okay, so the reality is now that I'm going to have to live in Texas. Or if I don't live in Texas, like, where am I gonna go? And then I'm like, I'm gonna have to ask BTC if I can carry on with them, and maybe I'm gonna have to hitchhike with them on the road. I'm like, I don't know what am I gonna do? Where am I gonna stay?
Yeah.
So yeah.
All valid points. Yeah.
Very.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing that story with us today. If any of my listeners would love to get a little more of you, where can they find you on social media, or where are you at on the internet?
So I am basically mostly on Instagram, and my handle is @AnnaHaldaneHair. I do try TikTok, but I can't really understand it.
Me too.
I'm like, I am a proud owner of a following account of 37 on TikTok. So yeah, so that's my TikTok journey. But yeah, so Instagram @AnnaHaldaneHair. And yeah.
Wonderful.
My DMs are open.
Love it. Yes. I mean, that's how we connected, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Which is awesome.
Yes, indeed. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on. And for anyone that wants to reach out to you, slide into those DMs.
Yes, please do.
Okay, thank you. We'll be in touch.
Thank you for having me.
Okay,
yes, absolutely. Bye.
All right, friend. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of the Your Hair Mentor podcast. It has been my pleasure to be here as your host. Again, my name is Crystal Green. And until next time, my friend, as I always love to say, have a wonderful hair day, and I'll see you then. Okay, bye.